What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. It's Mega Man X Legacy Collection Day. I know it might not be exciting to some of you guys. I'm excited because I'm a Mega Man X fan, so I'll be playing it today, and I should have a video up later on today checking it out and kind of talking about my thoughts around the game itself as I picked it up earlier this morning. So we should be playing that later on today. Now, before we get into some of the bigger stuff, let's start with some of the quick news, including a secret or one that people are looking for currently in God of War. See, people have been tearing apart God of War currently after San Diego Comic-Con with creative director Cory Barlog talking a bit about a secret that has still not been found, and then he tells everyone where it is. It's at Kratos' house, which is amazing because people were looking all throughout this game for a secret that apparently has not been found, and it's been at his house the whole time. So what do you think happens? Well, now people are freaking out online, and they are destroying his house trying to figure out what this secret is. There's a whole Reddit thread on it, and people are losing their mind, communicating back and forth, posting all over it. And at this time of recording, they still haven't exactly found what the secret is, but there's something there. So if you're really into God of War and you want to figure out what it is, run over to the Reddit post and see what you can help figure out. I'll leave a link to that Reddit post down in the comments if you want to run over there and check it out. But it's kind of neat how these kind of things still pop up in God of War and just other games where there are things we miss, and the directors say, oh, you're missing something. There's something in Mega Man 10, I think it is, that people are still looking for. It might be Mega Man 9. People are still looking for a secret that apparently is hidden that no one is letting us know from the creators and developers of that game. But hopefully people find this one. And honestly, with the amount of people searching right now, I think they're probably going to find it within the week now that they know technically where it is. We also found out DeBlob 2 is going to the Nintendo Switch. Of course, DeBlob 1 made its way over from THQ Nordic, and I think we all figured the second one would follow at some point, with the first one releasing a month or so ago, and now the second one is showing up after Nintendo updated their website with a full page for it. It's coming August 28th, $29.99. It's going to be physical and digital as well, and it looks to be about 3.1 gigabytes in size. It's already been out for the other systems as well, so if you didn't really play much of the first one, the second one might be worth looking into because it does have a co-op mode, which seems to make a lot of sense on the Switch with the split Joy-Con controllers, but you might want to check it out to see if it's something you'd want to play. Some people like the idea of the first one, but it got kind of boring to a lot of people with it being kind of repetitive. But the second one, people seem to enjoy much more, and I think a lot of that has to do with kind of the co-op mode, but it's coming August 28th. Again, THQ Nordic, like I said, guys, they keep buying up studios, smaller ones, but they're trying to build up their main company, and of course, they're also looking to support all systems, and just another game they're moving to the Switch, and we know they're going to be at Gamescom in full force too, so look out for them. Oh, and if you remember Playground mode on Fortnite, remember that went up and then they pulled it down for pairs and then they kind of delayed it, and it really hasn't been around since then, but people loved that mode when they got to try it out. It looks like it's returning. It'll actually be back tomorrow, July 25th, so look out for that. They should have the full patch notes and everything else out today, so check all that out. But if you're a fan of Fortnite and you like the idea of Playground mode that kind of let you practice and check everything out, you can run around with friends, it was a cool idea. There was just something that I guess didn't work right with it, or they just needed more time with it after everyone got to just smash into it when they put it live. They took it down, and it looks like it's going back up. We'll see if it remains. It should anyway. They kind of talked about it. If it remains like a permanent mode in the game, I think it's good just because it lets you practice and get used to weapons and kind of just mess around and build, of course. People like to build all those crazy structures. Well, this will give you the ability to kind of do basically Minecraft in Fortnite without having to worry about getting killed by just random people. All right, guys, that stuff out of the way. Let's get into some of the bigger stuff, starting with Nintendo. Again, going after another, I guess, game or emulator online. We just talked about how they went after a couple of ROM websites, and now they're going after a fairly popular Game Boy Advanced emulator that was located on GitHub. Now, this one is very much an open and shut case for what they're asking and what they are technically going after with a DMCA, and that is a Game Boy Advanced emulator that could play games with JavaScript in your browser. Now, you may be wondering, I thought emulators were legal. They were allowed to do that. Well, technically they are, but there are some conditions with emulators and why they are legal. One, you can't use any of the SDKs or anything like that. You have to make your own code to emulate the system. And you can't use BIOSes. See, the thing is, we have different emulators now that might need a BIOS. The Game Boy Advance one needs one, the PS2 needs one, and these are basically the underlying OS that lets the system run. Now, in order to get it for the Game Boy Advance, there are tools for you to dump the BIOS off of your actual Game Boy Advance. And you're technically not supposed to distribute that BIOS. That's why you see things like several emulators like GBA doesn't actually distribute that. And a lot of websites don't distribute it either, because that is actually held under copyright by Nintendo. Nintendo did put out a statement about this particular emulator saying, the file is located at the repository link JSEMU3, and then you see the long link there, contain unauthorized copies of Nintendo's video game software in violation of the law and GitHub's terms of service. Now, here's the thing about this. It also let people play games straight up in your browser, which it seemed like they were hosting with things like the Dragon Ball Z games. There was a Legend of Zelda, how you have Legend of Zelda games on the Game Boy and everything. Those were all there. And you didn't technically need to have your own BIOS for it to run, and these games appear to already be located on GitHub. And at the time of this recording, it's gone. GitHub took that thing down quick. And there's a lot of intrigue around this, because Nintendo is going after a Game Boy Advanced emulator, ROMs. They're going after more ROMs on another website, and this seems to be kind of sprouting up in the news. Although I do know Nintendo goes after a lot of these websites pretty consistently. They just kind of fly under the radar. But now we're coming up on a time where they're going to have their online service that's kind of a Netflix style, where it's a subscription service for games. And there's a lot of wonder here if they're going to be putting Game Boy Advance games, things like that, on this service. And because of this shutdown, like we saw with AM2R, and then, oh look, here comes Samus Returns, things like that, that it could be that they're going to put Game Boy or Game Boy Advance games on this service. And honestly, I wouldn't rule that out at all. I think they are looking at their entire back catalog of games, and it's very possible that Game Boy games could show up, considering they're on NES games now, and the Game Boy, obviously, the original brick was around at the time too. It came out a little later, and you basically had an NES that was handheld, kinda. That would make sense why they put that out. Game Boy Advance would be interesting, but I honestly don't think there's a massive link between this and that. I think this is literally them just deciding, we're going to go shut down these websites and stuff that are using our properties, because Nintendo's pretty serious about their properties. And this was an easy one. GitHub was going to rip this down right away anyway, so yeah, why not? Next up, let's talk about Dragon Ball FighterZ on the Nintendo Switch. We heard about an open beta coming next month in August at some point. And after they put out a tweet, Bandai Namco did, we find out that apparently the Switch is going to have new multiplayer features. These are modes that we haven't seen in the other versions. I assume there will be some sort of update leading up to the Switch's release, or on that release date for Dragon Ball FighterZ on the Switch. But check this out. They put this tweet out, and you can see right away there are a couple different modes there that we have never seen before. 2v2 and 1v1 are both available, an offline 6-player party match mode. And it's very interesting to see that the Switch could be debuting with new modes. Now, again, I assume that this is going to go to other systems in an update of some kind, but it's interesting to see this. I mean, think about the Switch. 6-player mode makes a lot of sense for it. I like the idea of 1v1. That's kind of cool, because then you don't have the tag in and out for people who might not like the Marvel vs. Capcom style or whatnot, the tag battle style. 2v2, there's more options to play, and that's kind of neat. I assume these are going to other systems, but maybe it's a timed exclusive thing for the Switch. It would give the Switch a reason to people to buy it at launch, but this is Bandai Namco. They're a third party. I don't think they're looking to sell Switches for Nintendo, but this could give people a reason to rush out and buy a whole nother release of the game that otherwise, for the general public, may kind of go under the radar, since a lot of people have bought the game, and the game's kind of fallen off a bit online from what I've been hearing and even seeing online. But hey, this is just more options for the game. 2v2, 1v1, 6-player party mode. It sounds neat to see, and we'll see if we hear about an update before the Switch version comes out, or on the day of the Switch version when it comes out for other systems. Next up, let's talk about some kind of sad news. We have to talk a bit about On Rush. Do you remember On Rush that came out last month? You may have missed it. It kind of fell under the radar. It didn't do the best on the sales charts. I think it sold like 1,000 or less in its debut week. This was done by Codemasters. Well, unfortunately, because the game was doing so poorly, they've actually had to do several layoffs. I mean, seriously, like several layoffs, significant layoffs. And it's unfortunate to see, because they were originally known, I believe, as Evolution Studios that did Drive Club, that Sony shut down because that game didn't do that well, so they just kind of can't catch a break. Because I have to say, On Rush is actually pretty fun. There was the full beta, and I was positive that when the beta came out and I was playing, I was like, this is actually really cool. People were describing it as kind of like Burnout mixed with like Overwatch, and yeah, that's kind of what it was. But it was fun, and I figured, okay, this beta might like help this game sell well in its first week, and this studio kind of needed to catch a break with this. And it seems like they didn't. They also put out a statement saying, "It is normal course of business for game teams to evolve as projects launch and move into service, and as other new projects start. As such, it isn't appropriate to comment on day-to-day movement of staff changes." So, unfortunately, I didn't want to talk about it, but after Eurogamer reported on these layoffs, it became pretty evident, especially after viewing its sales performance with charting and everything, and it's unfortunate. I would like to see them turn it around, although we've seen before when a game comes out and it does not do well in its first week and a studio needs it to do well, it's hard to turn that around. It really, really is. We've seen it with a lot of games recently. Lawbreakers, The Culling 2. It's just, when these things come out and they tank initially, it's almost like that's kind of it for it. Very few success stories of things being turned around. I guess the one good thing is Codemasters is saying that, at least for now, the post-game content that they had planned for Onrush is still in effect. It hasn't been impacted. I assume they just had to lay people off to get costs for, things like payroll and stuff within reason for what they're actually bringing in with these sales. So if you are enjoying Onrush right now, it looks like you can at least enjoy some post-game content going forward without having to worry about the game completely being abandoned. But we'll have to see if maybe sales pick up going into the holidays or something for it. That's the thing. Maybe that's what they're hoping is they get further into November. Maybe they get a good Black Friday deal on it and they really start picking up momentum. But we'll see. And in our last bit of news, we got more information about Fallout 76 and their beta. Of course, we heard that they were going to run some sort of beta, although the way they kind of described it, it sounded more like it was going to be a test for their server load, which makes sense because I think a lot of us are used to Bethesda games coming out and just being broken anyway, so I don't know if a beta would really help them that much. This is more so, I think, a network stress test, and on Bethesda's own forums, they posted saying, "Starting in October, we'll be selecting people who have pre-ordered the game from a participating retailer to enter our beta. We'll start small and grow over time as we prepare for launch. Be sure you've read our FAQ for details on how to redeem your beta code and other important details." So yes, you will have to, I guess, pre-order this at specific retailers and everything, probably like your GameStop, stuff like that, to take advantage of it. But they're very close to the release date. I mean, if they're going to do it in October, I was hoping they might try to do it in August, but October is like a month before the game launches. So I don't think they're going to be able to change much. That's why I'm kind of saying this seemed more like, okay, let's stress these servers, and if we need more server power, we can make that happen before launch. I mean, the game's going to have to go gold, weeks and weeks before the game actually comes out, which might be around the time of that beta. So yeah, I don't think they're going to change much before the game comes out. It might be something they change ongoing, but this sounds like they're just trying to stress their servers. But hey, if you want to try the game out before it does come out, apparently you're going to have to pre-order it, or I guess get lucky with like a pre-release code or something. But yeah, you'll probably have to pre-order it, and then at that point, like everything else you've seen with betas where they technically charge you through a pre-order to try it out, you can then try the game out, see what you think, and see how buggy a massive online, I guess you'd say, Bethesda game could be. And that's exciting. And guys, that's where we're going to leave Newswave today. Let me know your thoughts about everything we talked about down below, whether it is the God of War secret, maybe you can help figure that out, or maybe we'll talk about Dragon Ball FighterZ specific modes that they've revealed now, 1v1 and 2v2, or maybe you want to talk about Nintendo, I guess, going after emulators for the possibility of Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games showing up on the Switch with their services. Let me know, guys, all this down below. Make sure you like the video if you liked it, dislike it if not, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time.